of Edinburgh for the A1 northbound, which is blocked in Wallyford and the Craighall Junction at the scene of a serious accident just off the Edinburgh City bypass. In Lancashire, the M65 remains closed westbound at junction 10 of the Burnley turnoff. It's been the case since the early hours of this morning as recovery work continues after a lorry caught fire. And on to the trains. Well, buses replace services between Stranraer and Bar Hill due to signalling problems, as far as we understand from ScotRail tonight. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, GBNews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word. Very, very good evening to you. It's Monday the 24th of March and welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, in this past half hour, the Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch has dramatically called for a full national statutory inquiry into rape gangs after sharing on X. GB News' exclusive interview with Charlie Peters sat down with a survivor of one of Oldham's depraved grooming gangs. And the victim, speaking out for the first time, revealed the horrific abuse that she suffered, sparking renewed calls for accountability and justice. I'll be joined by the man of the moment, GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters, to discuss this latest dramatic development. And will the Labour Party back the UK's withdrawal from the ECHR? Seems like a bit of a tall tale, but Labour's own MPs are calling now on Keir Starmer to curb ECHR powers in UK courts. Now, this comes after a migrant criminal was protected from deportation after claiming his child, of course, would not eat foreign chicken nuggets. Plus outrage in Bolton as a former church is converted into a mosque and the adjacent green space is bulldozed for a car park, including cutting down a cherished Christmas tree. I'll be speaking to a local resident about this later on in the programme tonight. Now, all of this to come. It's going to be a stonking show, but first, here's your news headlines and it's Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good evening to you. Our top stories. The Conservatives will make a renewed effort to push the government into setting up a national investigation into grooming gangs. The leader of the opposition has confirmed she will table an amendment to the crime bill in an effort to force a national statutory inquiry to reveal the true extent of the systemic abuse and cover-ups, in her words. That's Kemi Badenoch. Of course, the Tory leader says it's been more than 2 months since Labour announced just 5 local rape gang inquiries, yet victims have still heard nothing. She claims a full inquiry is needed to reveal the true extent of the abuse. An earlier amendment by the Conservatives attached to the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill was defeated by a margin of 253 votes. The Prime Minister's vowed to take some money out of the government in this week's spring statement, as unions warn 50,000 jobs could be cut from the civil service. Rachel Reeves has confirmed departments will be asked to cut 15% from their budgets to save £2.2 billion a year by 2030. She claims only 10,000 back office jobs will be at risk. Well, unions say any cuts will hit frontline services after what they say are years of underfunding by previous Conservative governments. MP's salary is to rise by 2.8% to £94,000 a year, or just under that mark. The Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority says it's in line with wider pay recommendations for public sector workers. However, it comes just a year after MPs were given a 5.5% pay rise, and it comes shortly before they'll vote on proposed cuts to the welfare bill, which could see an estimated 1 million disabled people lose their benefits. Morrisons say hundreds of jobs are at risk as it continues to cut costs and restructure the business. The supermarket's planning to close 17 convenience stores and a range of on-site services, including cafes, pharmacies and deli counters. And Morrison says 365 jobs are at risk over the next 4 months, but they claim the majority of workers affected are expected to be moved into other roles. English councils will be ranked on how efficiently they fix potholes, and those that don't publish updates will miss out on millions of pounds worth of funding. From the middle of next month, local authorities across England will get an extra £500 million for road maintenance, but councils will lose a quarter of that if they fail to put out annual progress reports. The Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, has said there must be accountability in the system. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back with more just after 8 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, breaking news in this past 90 minutes or so. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has now demanded a full national statutory inquiry into rape gangs. And Miss Badenoch was moved to table an amendment to the crime bill after reacting to today's exclusive by GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters, in which he detailed an Oldham survivor's desperate attempt to locate his groomed daughter. And I'm joined by the man of the moment, GB News national reporter Charlie Peters joins me now. Charlie, your journalism on this has been excellent. It's been the gold standard, and people are sitting up and paying attention. Now, the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, OK, she had 14 years to call for an inquiry. The Conservatives in power. Nevertheless, they've seen your moving piece, and now they've been compelled to act.
I have to say, Martin, it's probably the main success that the Conservatives might have had so far in 2025 when they pushed forward that demand for a national inquiry in January that was, of course, voted against by the Labour Party in Parliament. But it did gain significant traction. For a couple of weeks, this issue was at the forefront of the national conversation. But there has been a lull since then. And one of the reasons why I've spoken to so many more people since that story erupted was to hear these new voices. Jade, who we're going to hear from in a moment, she's not spoken out. This is her first time that she's done so in over 20 years, explaining the horrifying abuse that she endured, and also hearing from her father, who we're calling John for legal reasons, both anonymous, because they all too often encounter the people who are involved in that horrendous abuse. Now, speaking to our political editor, Christopher Hope, just before this programme, he said that this is smart politics from the Conservatives because they know it's not going to pass. This crime bill amendment, again, the Labour Party will almost certainly reject it because they can say we are having this rapid audit being conducted by Dame Louise Casey. That's actually, I think, only recently started, so it has a couple more months to go. And also the government say that they're launching 5 local inquiries, one into Oldham and 4 other towns. We still don't know where they are. And the big question for so many survivors across the country is that GB News has located and identified up to 50 different towns and cities where this is a problem. We don't know how extensive the crisis is. That's why the Conservatives are calling for this national inquiry, and many others have supported it. What will also be interesting, Chopper was telling me just before we came live, Martin, is how many Labour MPs will vote for this amendment now. Because, of course, we heard Dan Carden up in Liverpool, we had Sarah Champion, Paul Wharf of Rochdale, Rotherham MPs there, and also Andy Burnham, the Manchester Mayor, obviously not in Parliament, but influential Labour voices calling for it. That could be another key test. But, Martin, let's take this back to the survivor and her father. That's why we're talking about this issue. That's why Kemi Badenoch is reacting again, as she has done tonight. We're going to Oldham tonight from this report, which was gathered with the support of this family, who are keen to have this appalling experience broadcast around the country because they want people to know just how appalling it is. But even worse than that, Martin, how it's been ignored for so many years. Let's now hear from John and Jade.
I'd go out on my own at first.
The father of a grooming gang victim, retracing the steps he took when he desperately searched for his missing daughter.
My heart would be beating like mad at this bit. And it still sort of is, believe it or not, because it's just like deja vu. And you'd be just hoping that this time will be the time I catch. I'm in the act. You know, I've got somebody talking to her, somebody trying to coerce her into the car, or anything.
We're keeping him anonymous for legal reasons. Over 8 months, his daughter was regularly going missing from children's homes in Oldham, being driven away by groups of men. Her father would search for her and for the gangs who were exploiting her.
Well, at first, for the first couple of nights, it was like 5-6 hours. But I'd come out around about 7 o'clock at night. I was just anxious all the time. You'd start looking up every street.
One night, while looking for her with his friends, they noticed a girl in the window of a derelict home. 20 years later, John took us back to the building. He hadn't been there since the night of the search.
A friend of mine, he turned around and said, "There's somebody out that window."
They stormed the building. 4 South Asian men were in the front room.
I was then shouting my daughter's name going up the stairs, hoping that it was my daughter. Sat at the top of the stairs, could see somebody in the bedroom, and I'm telling her that she's safe and all the rest of it. I couldn't think what to say to her. I said, "You're all right, no one's going to hurt you. You're safe, the police are coming, you know, you'll be all right." She come a bit closer, and I realised it weren't my daughter. And I told her that we'll look after her and we'll keep her safe. And she came and she sat just out my arm's reach. And I said, "Have you got a phone number that you know that somebody can come and get you?" And she gave me a phone number. We phoned the phone number. Her dad answered, and he was here within, 5-10 minutes. The police were literally 5 minutes behind him. He's got reunion back with the dad, and everything was great. The police took the 4 men into custody and went off with them. Someone came and locked it all up, and we're still sat mulling around. I'm really upset because it weren't my daughter. I so much wanted it to be. It'd be over.
But you'd been a hero to somebody else's daughter. You saved her.
It don't count. I know it should, but it don't. But it's your daughter that's still out there. You don't know what's happening to her.
Jade, not her real name, said she was abused by dozens of men after she was groomed by the gangs.
When they put something in my drink, and then 4 people raped me.
4 people?
Yeah. And I still speak to one of the guys that took me around them, which is a bit messed up.
Do you remember trying to get help at the time?
Yeah, they just didn't believe none of us. I met some of the families though. Like I met the wives, the mothers, the kids. Which is a bit messed up now I think of it, but...
So some of the men who were abusing you were married?
Mm-hmm.
Did they have children themselves?
Yeah.
Did you ever... What was it like meeting them?
They're awkward. They just told them that I was a girl that was working at the restaurant.
And did any of them ever speak to you about what was going on?
Yeah, one of the girls asked me how come my daddy brings loads of girls back. She was only 2 years younger than me, this girl.
These abusive men, many of them fathers, would use violence to keep Jade quiet.
Yeah, I've been dangled off top story flat, like balcony. I've been dangled off by my feet by that trigger guy.
So they were violent as well?
Yeah.
It wasn't just him who experienced violence, they were physically threatening beyond just sexually abusing you?
Yes,
as well.
I've been tied up and everything. Been stripped naked, tied up, put in a boot, taken to the moors. They threw stone at my window at the care home, told me to come out, so I climbed out the window and I come down, and then he was trying to oven me and I was having none of it, and he took me to a house where there was 2 other girls there and some guys, and these girls were crying and stuff, and I had to tell them to calm down. But I let them out. Because I let them out, they stripped me naked and tied me up.
Were there lots of other situations like that?
Yeah, loads. Oh, I can't remember most of them. I block them out.
There were just so many traumatising situations?
To the point where I just had to block it out, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to live my life.
Did they regularly give you drink and drugs?
Yeah, all the time. They even still try and do it now.
So even now, almost 20 years on, they're still targeting you?
Yeah, these are they're still same people.
Do you have much confidence that the people who were violent and sexually assaulted you might face justice at some point?
Well, no, the heck. I'm pretty sure that these have got away with it for life. And they've got other people doing it, so other people are still going to carry on doing this. This is never going to end.
Do you remember roughly how many men you encountered?
85 men. I counted every single one of them.
85 men abused during that period?
Yeah. 85 men. In the space of 3 years.
And you still see them out and about in town?
Yeah.
What are they like when they encounter you?
They put the head down. Oh, well, some of them are like, hey, you alright? I'm like, yeah, you.
Do you feel safe?
Yeah. I ain't scared enough of me. That's good, I don't get scared of much. Unless it's a spider.
When you reflect on how badly it's been for your daughter being targeted over so many years by gangs of men, and when you also look at how bad you say this problem is, not only just in the north but around the country, what was your reaction when the government voted against a public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal?
It's just a massive cover-up. They're protecting their own jobs, that's all it is. I think if people knew what was going on their doorstep and they could actually see it, it turned your stomach. The councils turn a blind eye to it, the police turn a blind eye to it. If anybody's turned around and turned a blind eye to it, I want them to be prosecuted. I want justice for my daughter. I want it stopped dead. And I want the people who are responsible to stand in court, and if they have to serve time, it'll serve them right. Perhaps they'll realise that their life can be ruined like mine has. Because I've got no out. They've took everything from me. Took my daughter. Can't take more than that.
Charlie Peters, GB News, Oldham.
Difficult watch, isn't it? But they won't stay silent any longer. A Home Office spokesperson said this to GB News. This government is committed to doing everything it can to tackle the horrific crime of child sexual abuse. This includes working closely with local areas to confront these crimes head-on, ensure perpetrators face the full force of the law and provide vital support to victims and survivors. As the Home Secretary announced in January, £5 million is being made available through a new fund to help strengthen local response to child sexual exploitation. This funding will help support local authorities that want to undertake work targeted at specific local needs, underpinned by a new local inquiries network framework. Charlie Peters. GB News is called the People's Channel. Isn't this the most direct and tangible way of taking a topic that they simply tried to bury their heads, wanted it all to go away? They wouldn't be silenced. You've dug in. Tonight, Kemi Badenoch has responded.
But we need more response, Martin, fundamentally, because there are thousands of voices just like Jade's, just like her father's, who've endured the most appalling suffering, going on those drives with her father as he took us back to those journeys he had not taken for 20 years. It was very difficult. You could feel the adrenaline coursing through him as he was going back to buildings he'd not been to because they are just so painful to revisit. But he did that with us because he is so keen for people to understand what it was like for him, what it was like for her, so people can have a better understanding of why this country, so many politicians are saying, or so many survivors are demanding, are needing that national public inquiry. The government, as we've just said in that statement, they're putting forward 5 local inquiries. They announced that 2 months ago. We still don't know where 4 of those inquiries will be. Many survivors feel as though they're playing essentially an inquiry lottery. Will my town be picked? But the problem they've got with those inquiries, I've heard hundreds of times since January from so many survivors across the country, is they're not statutory. No one can be compelled to give evidence. That's why you heard that father at the end of our report saying, I want people to be pulled in front of a judge. Until then, Martin, until there's more political demand for that, they won't see the sort of justice that they demand so desperately.
Well, until now, Charlie Peters, put it there. Well done, my old son. Amazing reporting. Thank you very, very much. We must say huge congratulations to Charlie, who has been nominated for a Trick Award in the Best News Presenter category, as you can see on your screen. Now, these awards are voted for by you, and we need your help to make our man Charlie Peters this year's winner. As you can see, there's a QR code on your screen there now. Scan that and vote Charlie Peters. And we're also delighted that Breakfast has been nominated in the Best News Programme category. To vote for both Charlie and for GB News Breakfast, please scan the QR code on your screen right now or go to poll-trick.org.uk and vote for GB News. Thank you, Charlie. Superb. Now, next, will Labour back the UK's withdrawal from the ECHR? Well, Labour's own MPs are calling on Keir Starmer to curb ECHR powers in UK courts. Now, this comes after a migrant criminal was protected from deportation after claiming his child would not eat foreign chicken nuggets. That's next. If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, the Labour Party MPs are pushing Sir Keir Starmer to rethink human rights laws that are stopping the deportation of failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals. Now, some red wall backbenchers are saying the Prime Minister should support changes to how the European Convention on Human Rights is used in British courts to give the UK more control over its own borders. And they're particularly frustrated with cases where migrant criminals have been allowed to stay because of their kids, for example, wouldn't eat foreign chicken nuggets or because they'd be depressed back home. Well, I'm very pleased now to be joined by Jonathan Brash, who is leading this group of Red Wall MPs, as well as my panel, Gawain Towler, former Reform UK spokesman, and Nigel Nelson, GB News' senior political commentator. Mr Brash, let's start with you. This sounds very much like the kind of thing Reform or the Conservatives might put forward. Is this something of a Red Wall rebellion? A lot of people are, of course, frustrated about the loophole of the human rights of criminals to stay in the country, particularly under Article 8, and you're pushing back.
Well, I mean, let's be clear, the Home Secretary has asked for a review of Article 8 and the way it's applied, and I just don't think it's a particularly controversial view to say that if our government wants to deport a foreign criminal, they should be able to. And the ECHR allows for that in issues of public safety, in national security. It's perfectly legitimate for a government to say, Article 8 is not applying here, we are deporting a foreign criminal. And if that's a controversial view for anyone, I don't know what they're thinking about, because quite frankly, if someone is a danger to the public in this country, they should be deported. It's as simple as that.
I think many people watching this show will be crying hurrah. They totally agree with that position. And yet, the lawyers don't agree, and the lawyers keep pushing back, and the lawyers keep winning. And it seems like the lunatics have taken over the asylum system. For example, the chicken nuggets, a Cuban woman who married somebody who was dead, a paedophile who sexually assaulted their stepdaughter, a gentleman from the Congo, but couldn't be deported because it might negatively impact the goodwill and the well-being of his wife. So a lot of people agree with you, but you'll face the same problems from the same lawyers as previous governments, will you not?
Well, I think that's what people want, is they want a government that actually makes the decision. The government was democratically elected. They should be in charge of who is in the country and who is not. And if you are a criminal and you are proposing harm to the British people and you're not from this country and you're here illegally, you should be deported. It can't really be much simpler than that. And we have to get to a position where we deliver that. So I think reviewing how it's applied, as, by the way, has happened in other countries very successfully, reviewing the application of Article 8 is exactly the right thing to do.
They've done this in Italy. They've done it in Germany, in Austria, in Denmark, in Sweden. They're not only in the ECHR, they're also in the European Union. Yeah, I mean, yet we haven't got round to doing it. Why do you think you'll succeed where previous regimes failed?
Well, all I can say is the Home Secretary has ordered a review into the application of Article 8. I will push him, along with many other MPs, to make sure that's as impactful as possible. You're quite right to say it's happened in other countries. There's absolutely no reason why it can't happen here.
Is this a Red Wall rebellion?
No, I mean, it's the Home Secretary who's ordered the review. We happen to support it. You know, we feel these issues very keenly on behalf of our constituents, but the government is driving this forward. And actually, I think what you've seen in the first 8 months of this Labour government is tougher action at our border, international agreements with the likes of Italy and Germany and others, and now reviewing the ECHR's application in our courts. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a smart thing. I think it's what will get the job done.
Jonathan Brash, have we gone through the looking glass? The Labour Party pushing back on the ECHR, the Labour Party cutting foreign aid, the Labour Party getting rid of NHS England. You're more Conservative than the Conservatives.
Look, we're responding to what the public that we represent want. That is the job of politicians. I'm afraid the Conservative Party completely lost touch with the British public over the last 14 years. We're not going to do that. We're going to respond to what the British public want.
Jonathan Brash, talking of which, you're also here to talk about council tax. You're highlighting the fact council tax, you believe, is unfairly impacting those in northern, more socially depraved constituencies.
Well, let me be clear. Council tax is a tax on deprivation. If you are in Westminster in a Band A property, you're paying £1,000 less than somebody in Harvard Hartlepool. If you're in a Band H property, you're paying £3,000 less. So it's hammering towns like Hartlepool. Last week, I led a debate in the House of Commons urging the government to think again and reform the council tax system, because at the moment, it is literally a tax on poverty. That is not what I got into government to be about.
But if my memory serves me rightly, it was Sir Keir Starmer who pledged not to rise council tax before the general election, and now practically every area is facing the maximum 4.99 percentile rise.
And what I will say to you is the reason for that is that the system is absolutely broken. It's 34 years old, based on 1991 house prices. We have a situation where in Hartlepool, over half the properties are Band A. In Westminster, it's 1%. You cannot leverage enough money to deliver the services that Hartlepool people need with a broken system like that. We have to sweep it away. It is a tax on deprivation. We have to get rid of it.
OK, thank you very much. Let's bring my panel now. Gawain Towler, I'm going to you first. Do you think Jonathan Brash's channeling is in a Nigel Farage?
Well, I'm expecting the application for defection very soon, I think.
It won't be happening. Not a chance.
But no, much of what Jonathan's saying is absolutely straight down the line, though I note it's sort of illegal migrants. I think that when it comes to systems like this, we are looking at, 104,000 foreign nationals who are criminals. That doesn't make them illegal, but they are foreign nationals who have broken the law and been charged and convicted in this country. I think we have to go beyond just illegals, but all of those who are foreign nationals needs to be removed because they've committed a crime. They're guests. They're welcome here as long as they play by our ball, not break the law. So it goes a bit further than that. And I think that whilst Article 8 is the key, there are other aspects that I think are problematic within the ECHR, and I think we should leave it entirely. There's this bizarre idea that in this country we didn't have civil liberties or rights until the Europeans kindly granted them. We did, and we have them, and we actually know how to behave in this country quite well, thank you very much. We do not need to have foreign courts making any decisions over UK law.
Nigel Nelson, what hope does Sir Keir Starmer have, or the Home Secretary have, or Jonathan Brash have of changing something which seems so stuck in its ways? The lawyers know the weak points, they know the pressure points, they know the loopholes, and it seems we have a system that once again favours foreign criminals and not British citizens.
Well, I mean, the important thing is for Yvette Cooper's review, as Jonathan's just talked about, to have a look at the way it's being interpreted. I mean, if judges are over-interpreting Article 8 too widely...
Which they are.
Well, all right, but that is what you're looking at.
Chicken nuggets, rapists allowed to stay in Britain.
Hang on a sec, though. On the things like these chicken nugget things, what tends to happen is selective reporting of immigration tribunals. Yes, there was a case of an Albanian who'd said that his son only liked British chicken nuggets and didn't want any back in Albania.
Yes.
However, there was a very tiny part of the case. It was picked out as being the major reason why he wasn't returned home.
What about
in fact, there were other reasons.
What about the Nigerian woman who avoided deportation because she joined a prescribed terrorist organisation? That's not selective headlines. That's what's happening.
Yeah, but the whole thing is that things are being picked out like that, whereas in fact it doesn't make it untrue. It just means that an awful lot of weight is being given to smaller things. An example: Theresa May talked about at a Tory conference that a Bolivian overstayer was here because they bought a cat. When you actually went into it, yes, that was true, but actually the reason for the judge's decision was that strong ties to the UK and a long-term relationship
with the cat.
The cat was a minor part of it. So what I'm saying is that we keep picking out the absurdities of it, but if you look at the entire judgment, it makes a bit more sense.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Jonathan Brash, member of the Labour Party, Hartlepool, thank you for your time. Really mean it. Please come back. Gawain Towler, Nigel Nelson, of course. Great start to the show. Never thought about a Bolivian cat being the excuse for staying in Britain. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Superb stuff. Let's move on now. Coming up next, police face another two-tier justice row over plans to review alleged bias against young black people. And remember, Labour's pledge to stop housing asylum seekers in hotels. Well, we've got an update for you after this short break.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, twice in the past 3 days, police chiefs have been accused of taking the knee to Black Lives Matter. At the weekend, we learned that the Metropolitan Police pulled armed officers away from the gates of Downing Street at the height of those BLM riots you can see on your screens in 2020. And today, police chiefs have told their forces that they must become anti-racist, following a new report which claims that black people are being unfairly criminalised. Now, the report stresses that it's not enough for officers to simply avoid being racist, but do both of these reports give yet more proof of two-tier policing? And let's face it, where black people are getting the softer treatment. I'm very pleased now to be joined by Leroy Logan, the founding member of the Black Police Association. Leroy, welcome to the show. 2 reports here saying, well, you heard the first one. The riot cops that steam into those from the so-called far right, they were told to stand down against the Black Lives Matter protesters. Protests, by the way, that saw shopping trolleys pushed into police horses, officers knocked off the back of those horses and were injured. And now a second report saying there is bias against young black people who are unfairly criminalised. What's your take?
Well, which part do you want me to think? I mean, there's a lot
Let's
there.
start on the riots. Let's start on the riots. Do you think that there's a fair allegation of two-tier policing the following weekend when the White Football Lads Alliance turned up to protect the same statues that Black Lives Matter desecrated, calling Churchill a racist? The riot cops were sent in then, but they weren't the first time. Was that two-tier policing right at the very beginning of COVID lockdowns?
Well, I'm not privy to the intelligence, the Central Command officers who coordinate protests and police it in in a very objective way. And I've worked with those central officers. I've never known them to have, well, we're going to be light touch on black people and heavy on the far right. They judge it on the risks and the information they have, and they'll use force that's commensurate with the risks that they face and the public faces. So I've never known any of this two-tier thing. And that's been bandied around so many times. It's whistleblowing politics from the far right who are saying, this is the case. And I must admit, it's doing police an injustice. But I will say that from black people, they will not recognise that they have a light touch when it comes to policing and their everyday experience because of the disproportionality of stop and search when you're 9 times more likely to be stopped if you're black than you're white. And that's not in London, but all over a lot of our towns and cities. So they have, on the receiving end, on a day-to-day basis, the very, very heavy-handed policing. And I think that's what this report is getting at. It's not just about specific protests in central London.
OK, let's look at that notion of, is stop and search racist, or is it actually targeted policing when you look at the offender profile, the typical offender profile? For example, in London, where black people make up 13% of the population, but they make up 45% of knife crime victims and 61% of knife murder perpetrators. Black people 4.5 times more likely to stab somebody to death. Those are just the facts. Those facts aren't racist. On the basis of that data, it's not sensible to stop and search young black men at a more proportionate level?
Well, those figures can be used in Leeds, where majority stabbings are done by white people, or in Glasgow. So it has to be judged on its merits. And you have to understand that knife crime is not just colour-coded. Crime has no colour. Crime is crime. And there's certain factors that leads to certain types of crime. And I'm not in any way trying to justify knife crime amongst our young people. But unfortunately, the issues of young people from certain groups have not got the role models they need. They feel they're over-policed and underprotected. They're not getting schoolings they should, the exclusions. So there's a real momentum of things that's going against certain people, some young people in certain deprived areas. And I agree, there is a disproportionate number of them stabbing each other. But it shouldn't be seen that they have to be on the receiving end of heavy-handed policing that's not intelligence-led and appropriate to the risk that the officers face. So all I am saying is don't make assumptions, treat people with respect and dignity, and use reasonable and proportionate force.
OK, thank you. We have to leave it there. Always a pleasure to have your company. Leroy Logan, founding member of the Black Police Association. Now, moving on, the Treasury has today confirmed that migrants will continue to be housed in hotels and other temporary accommodation for years to come. But that wasn't the biggest revelation, because the Treasury document also revealed that the government's pledge to build 1.5 million new homes in England by 2029 is expected now to help reduce the reliance on hotels for asylum seekers. So, could the new planning reforms, which Angela Rayner is fiercely advocating for, actually lead to the biggest building boom for migrants? Well, over to my panel. Gawain Towler, nobody voted for new homes for new arrivals.
I think not. This is not that I think that relaxing some of the planning controls is not a good thing. It is a good thing, and I think it's necessary. However, what is it? Something like $2 billion a year, if on current numbers, is being spent on hotels. The government promised that this would be brought to an end. Well, if it's being brought to an end by spending even more on building new homes across the country, in towns and villages, not just in cities, for these migrants, then serious questions are going to be asked. And I tell you what, the stuff that we've been seeing in Ireland in response to when you have villages being overwhelmed, if you start to feel that sort of thing in smaller areas in the UK, I suspect the response will be just as fierce.
Nigel Nelson, there's been a huge conversation around the amount of money that private landlords are making, hoteliers, and also Serco. Now, the government's own elected body hoovering up housing stock, often at the taxpayers' expense. That's bad enough. But to learn that these 1.5 million new builds could fill part of the buffer zone to house asylum seekers, that is simply unacceptable.
Well, the Office of Value for Money has said that it looks like there's profiteering been going on as far as the providers of hotels. What they're talking about here is it costs £145 a day to keep a migrant in a hotel, £14 if you can accommodate them in the local authority. So if you've got more places where they could go, say it's a large house that you're not filling a family with, that would make sense. The whole point is to try and bring the cost down by about $4 billion.
By buying more houses with public purse so you can give them to asylum seekers.
These will be houses.
It's the same problem in a different way.
These would be houses under local authority control. As they are now, there'd just be more of them.
Why should local authority housing be bought or built or hoovered up to give them to asylum seekers?
Because they're not being bought or built to give to asylum seekers. They're being bought and built anyway.
Well, if you've got a housing shortage.
If you've got, well, that's the whole point of building 1.5 million new homes. So if you've got local authorities with some spare capacity, it would be a lot cheaper to keep asylum seekers in one of those properties.
I think it's farcical to even think about spare capacity. Absolutely farcical.
Well, it's happening now.
There is no spare capacity in council-owned properties.
Great, it's happening now.
And we were just talking about council tax rises going through the roof. We were talking about this. Is one of the reasons is we're now going to be spending all this money on building new build, not necessarily for our own homeless, for those people who are suffering from massive
You've got
rents.
this idea we're building homes for migrants.
No. We're building homes for people, but the problem is half the people who need the homes seem to be migrants.
We're talking about when there is spare capacity, it's a lot cheaper to keep a migrant in a local authority.
Tell somebody
premises.
on steepling rent rises their spare capacity. Tell the young people who can't afford a house their spare capacity. There is no spare capacity. And 1.5 million homes, even if in God's good earth we can build that many, even if that's possible, there won't be spare capacity because the people of this country need them now.
Yes, of course they do, and that's the whole point. But at the moment, surely you don't want asylum hotels to carry on.
No, I want us to stop taking so many asylum seekers in. I want us to stop the boats. I want us to stop these numbers.
But let's deal with the problem as it stands, not as you wish it to be, which is what you're talking about by stopping.
First turn off the taps, and then you might have a chance.
OK, Nigel Nelson, final word to you. The Labour Party said they would end the use of asylum hotels. They're not ending them, they're increasing them. They've rowed back, it seems, on every single pledge they put out there before the election. This is just another U-turn.
Well, it's not a U-turn, but it is taking longer. I would certainly accept that. I mean, so far, what Labour have been able to do is send back 19,000 people, which is not bad, and they're cutting now the backlog. Those things should reduce the numbers in hotels.
OK, got to move on. Thank you, Nigel, and thank you, Gawain. Up next, outrage in Bolton as a former church is converted into a mosque, with the adjacent green bulldozed, as you can see on your screens, to make way for the mosque's car park. I'll be speaking to a local resident. That's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, here's your latest winter sun forecast brought to you by the Met Office. We'll see some warm sunshine across parts of the Mediterranean over the next few days, but plenty of showers too. And certainly on Tuesday, a mixture of sunshine and showers across the Canaries, across Madeira. Fewer showers across Spain and Portugal, so some sunshine here. But notice across the central part of the Med, plenty of showers, some heavy, even thundery showers around. And brighter skies the further southeast you go across Turkey and Cyprus. Over the next few days, showers mainly in the east, brighter skies the further west you go.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Heading into tomorrow, more cloud across central and southern parts with some spots of rain. Brighter in the north, though, with some warm, sunny spells. A different story tonight, though. Cloudier across the north with outbreaks of rain spilling in as a result of these frontal systems moving through this evening and overnight. Most of the rain largely light, but we could see some heavier spells across exposed coasts and northern areas. Eventually, this cloud and rain sinking southeastwards, moving into northern parts of Wales, northern parts of England too, and quite blustery for a time, particularly across Scotland. Across the south and southeast, staying dry with clearer skies and lighter winds, so it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning, and it will be a slightly chillier start here too. Across Scotland to start the day into tomorrow, most of the rain will have cleared away, perhaps just leaving a remnants of cloud, and can't rule out the odd shower just skirting across the Northern Isles, and still rather blustery here too. Quite a murky start across Northern Ireland, grey skies and some quite low cloud, and fairly similar across northern parts of England and Wales too, perhaps even seeing some spots of rain and drizzle. Across the south and southeast, a brighter start once any mist and fog clears, but through the course of the morning we'll continue to see this band of cloud and rain sink its way southwards, so any brighter skies soon being replaced by cloud, but any rain largely petering away. Turning brighter across Scotland, Northern Ireland, seeing some sunny spells here, rather dry but still the odd shower just skirting the Northern Isles, and with lighter winds it should feel rather pleasant in the sunshine with highs of around 14 to 15 Celsius, but even where we see that cloud linger across the south, still rather mild for the time of year. Into tomorrow with clearer skies, likely more mist and fog to start the day, perhaps some patchy frost. But through the course of the day, as a ridge of high pressure builds, there's going to be plenty of sunny spells, particularly across central and southern parts. But we'll soon see a change once again into the northwest with more cloud and outbreaks of rain here. And it's likely the majority of us will see more rain as we head towards Friday, quite windy at times, and temperatures returning more towards average.
Headliners on GB News 11 PM every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 PM and 5 AM as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 PM every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, tensions are running high in Bolton, Greater Manchester, as frustrated villagers voice their concerns over a controversial transformation of a cherished green space. You can see on your screens the before picture. Last year, a once pristine village green where locals gathered and celebrated and even sang their Christmas carols was ripped up by diggers and stripped of its trees. The plan? To make room for a 19-space car park for the new mosque in the area. Now, this green space, which had been an integral part of the community, was previously home to the Chew Moor Methodist Church, which closed its doors in 2023 due to a dwindling congregation. Afterwards, it was announced the site would be converted into a mosque. While many residents supported that change at the time, tensions began to simmer when just days after the sale, work began on the site without the proper council approval. Now, the situation took a sharp turn when trees were felled, including one beloved conifer that had stood for years and was even used as the village Christmas tree. Now, this once peaceful spot has been left unrecognisable, sparking anger and division among villagers who feel their community space has been unfairly taken away. Well, joining me now is one of those residents, and that's John Martindale, who lives only 200 yards away from the new mosque. John, welcome to the show. We've recounted your tale there. Emotionally, how has this impacted on the villagers?
Well, I think what you know, the developers had every right to buy the building, and they had every right to use the building as a mosque, as there was no change of use. But they had no right to use the green next door as a car park without due planning permission. But literally the day after they bought the property and completed, they just sent on a bunch of people to rip down the trees in a very unsafe manner. They were going up on diggers with electric chainsaws and hacking at the trees, pulling down the trees with bulldozers. There was no care about how they looked after the environment and how they cared for the employees that were doing it. It was all in breach of health and safety regulations. it was done quickly to get the trees down as quick as possible. And I think what happened was the villagers went over. You know, Dewmore is an oasis within the town of Bolton. We're a small village that are completely surrounded by greenbelt land. We're a very close-knit community. The disadvantage we have is that we have a main road that goes through the village that cuts under the M61 motorway and goes over the two railways, and that causes it to be a bit of a rat run. But it was the fact that there was no consultation with the locals.
Okay, John.
There was no planning permission obtained or even applied for.
Can I ask you, we don't have a lot of time, can I ask you a question about, we hear a lot about two-tiered justice, about two-tiered policing. Do you think this is a case of two-tiered planning? For example, if you rip down a church, you'd expect to get long arm of the law knocking on your door. Do you think that the owners of the mosque are getting, I don't know, soft treatment?
Well, they're currently using it as a car park now, which is illegal. They're driving across the pavement now, which is illegal. And if you and I did that, we would expect, and quite rightly so, we would expect to get a ticket from the local constabulary for doing something illegal against the Highways Act. And if I got a ticket for driving across a pavement, I would just accept it, because that is the law of the land. But they just don't care. They use it now. They haven't even got a planning application in now. The planning application they put in 9 months after they bought it.
Okay. Oh, we've lost John there, I'm afraid. We have to leave it there. So sad. But thank you very much, John Martindale, who joins us there. And we've got a statement from the mosque to read out. From the Masjid Ramah, the mosque said this. The spokesperson, beg your pardon, says, given the lack of alternative options, on-site parking is essential to ensure we're able to meet our needs without compromising the parking needs of our immediate neighbours. Our application met all requirements and was validated by the planning team, but almost 2 weeks later was removed, citing an oversight on the council's part in requiring a biodiversity report. Notwithstanding the blight underpinned by local politics, misinformation and simply by those not happy that it is now a mosque, we are keen for the planning application to be reinstated and trust the due planning process will prevail. So that's that. Now, coming up next is State of the Nation with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Sir Jacob, what's on your menu?
All sorts of exciting things. I've got two fantastic guests this evening along with my panel. I've got Douglas Carswell on, who's written this amazingly powerful piece saying how the government of the United Kingdom should be restructured, how an incoming Conservative, possibly even Reform government, could be Trumpian and get things done. And I've also got the very brilliant Jonathan Lord Sumption, former Supreme Court judge, who's now saying we should leave the European Convention on Human Rights. One of the cleverest men in the United Kingdom. I mean, he is probably even more brains than David Willits. So if David Willits has 2 brains, Lord Sumption has 3. It's a really, really good guest coming on this evening to talk about some quite controversial issues.
3 brains assumption. Now, there's quite a thought. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, thank you very much. I think it's my panel waiting patiently there. Gawain Tyler and Nigel Nelson. Thank you, gentlemen. Been an absolute pleasure. I'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. with my show, Martin Daubney Show. Coming up next, State of the Nation. But first, though, here's your weather with Honor Krizik.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Heading into tomorrow, more cloud across central and southern parts with some spots of rain. Brighter in the north, though, with some warm, sunny spells. A different story tonight, though. Cloudier across the north with outbreaks of rain spilling in as a result of these frontal systems moving through this evening and overnight. Most of the rain largely light, but we could see some heavier spells across exposed coasts and northern areas. Eventually, this cloud and rain sinking southeastwards, moving into northern parts of Wales, northern parts of England too, and quite blustery for a time, particularly across Scotland. Across the south and southeast, staying dry with clearer skies and lighter winds, so it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning, and it will be a slightly chillier start here too. Across Scotland to start the day into tomorrow, most of the rain will have cleared away, perhaps just leaving a remnants of cloud, and can't rule out the odd shower just skirting across the Northern Isles, and still rather blustery here too. Quite a murky start across Northern Ireland, grey skies and some quite low cloud, and fairly similar across northern parts of England and Wales too, perhaps even seeing some spots of rain and drizzle. Across the south and southeast, a brighter start once any mist and fog clears, but through the course of the morning we'll continue to see this band of cloud and rain sink its way southwards, so any brighter skies soon being replaced by cloud, but any rain largely petering away. Turning brighter across Scotland, Northern Ireland, seeing some sunny spells here, rather dry but still the odd shower just skirting the Northern Isles, and with lighter winds it should feel rather pleasant in the sunshine with highs of around 14 to 15 Celsius, but even where we see that cloud linger across the south, still rather mild for the time of year. Into tomorrow with clearer skies, likely more mist and fog to start the day, perhaps some patchy frost. But through the course of the day, as a ridge of high pressure builds, there's going to be plenty of sunny spells, particularly across central and southern parts. But we'll soon see a change once again into the northwest with more cloud and outbreaks of rain here. And it's likely the majority of us will see more rain as we head towards Friday, quite windy at times, and temperatures returning more towards average.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight